We now have the ability to put a mechanical speedometer and hook into the computer with the VSS. Well, welcome back, folks, to Random Rod Shop, where the temperature moves from 80 to 30 on any given day. So I'm back in my coveralls. All right, we're going to try to finish up the jig for putting a mechanical speedometer on the 4L60. The last time we were here, I'd made the base plate, the front plate. You know, I'd used the socket as the locating pin, and we put a stop back here so this thing can't move around when we drill it. Let me move the camera over and let me tell you where we're at right now. Okay, so the last time, and this is the old housing. I got a piece of tape on it, but you know, we drilled it. I showed you what it looked like. We were just a little bit off. As near as I could tell, we were off 100 thousandths, so 0.1 inches. Hopefully, I've adjusted for that. What I've got set up here is I've got a square to give me a perpendicular or a line parallel to the output shaft, and I ground off all those booger welds up there and re-welded them on the back. I just couldn't stand to look at them. Anyway, so I've got a line now. It's scribed on the plate, but I've got a square clamped down on here, and that line should be parallel to the output shaft that goes through this tail shaft. I then got a square set up here, and I got my little magnetic holder thingies from Harbor Freight. So I've measured this leg, and it's 4 3/8 inches, right? Different points on the machine surface of this tail housing. I think that is the dimension that we need the hole in terms of this direction, right? I think the hole needs to be 4 3/8 from the face to the center line of that hole. Now, keep in mind that I'm putting the gear on the other side of the shaft from the way everybody else seems to do it. So this 4 3/8 won't be the same as, near as I can tell, everybody else out there. Keep in mind that 4 3/8 that I'm measuring to the center line of this purple gear isn't going to be the same as the center line of that red gear. The red gear is where the kit's out everybody's trying to sell in terms of modifying a 4L60 tail housing. Now the 700 R4 housings, I don't know anything about those, but in terms of modifying the 4L60 like everybody else does, that speedometer gear, they're putting it right there. So my 4 3/8 isn't going to work if that's where you put the speedometer gear. Okay, all right, so that gives me a line to tell me where the 4 3/8 is. Trying to mark out where the hole really needs to be. So that's this dimension. Where's the center line of the hole I need to drill relative to the center line of the output shaft? And as near as I can tell, this hole is about 1.15, and what I need is 1.25 inches. So from the center line of the output shaft to the center line of the speedometer gear needs to be about 1.25 inches. Now that dimension should be the same no matter which option you decide to take in terms of where to put speedometer gear. The question is, at this point, I think it's 1.25. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to try to mark off 100 thousandths right on the bottom edge of this so I can open this hole up. Then I'll use this to set on there and just kind of draw a circle. Then I'm going to file it. It shouldn't be that much. And since I've already cut this tail housing all up, I don't think I'm hurting anything. Okay, so, all right, I'm going to go ahead and file this thing out. So, it's always scary when you move all the stuff that you were laying out with, but be that as it may, Well, let's put it on the transmission, and we'll put the bullet back in here, and I'll get you over there, and we'll see if it's closer. Well, I can tell you that's a lot better. Let me see if I can hold the light. There we go. Well, that's a lot closer. I think the 125 is going to work. I think the 125 is going to work. Okay, let me take this bullet out and let me put it in the Turbo 350 tail housing so you can see how the factory kept that whatever color that is, yellow gear, the driven gear, in place. All right, let me get this out of here. All right, so I put the stop back in, so the bullet is located, and I'm gonna take the camera off and show you what's going on here. All right, you can see the gear in there, and you can see the boss on this side. That keeps the gear from going in that direction. Let me grab the housing, let me show you. That speedometer cable, oh, there we go. The speedometer cable actually keeps the gear from coming this way, right? So it looks like there's a lot of space there between the bullet and the gear, but the cable itself keeps the gear from moving to your left. I guess that's what it is, yeah, moving this way. And that boss is what positions that gear from going to your right. So that's our task, is to provide something. And I put the keeper in there just to make sure that thing was positioned. So if you look at that, all that is just flat spot for that gear to ride on. So all we need to do, and we talked about this earlier, we'll have to provide a stop for this. And I'm actually thinking at this point, it's just a little angle coming off the bottom of the tube we're going to stick in there. So it looks like we're close. So I was initially going to try to cut this because it's a broken tail housing. I don't know if you can see that, but this tail housing, the bushing was wallowed out on the end of it. I was going to cut that, but I think we're at the point, I feel pretty good about where that's at. I think we're going to cut a pretty decent tail housing. And we're going to see if this actually fits. Now the downside, it's going to be hard to see if it's right. So here's my nice shiny. It's got a new seal in it. It's got a new bushing in it. I really don't want to mess this one up, but we kind of need to know if this is going to work. The downside to putting the gear on that side of the shaft is that it's hard to figure out. It's going to be a challenge to figure out if you got the if you got the speedometer gear in the right place. You know, if the speedometer gear is on top of that, And, you know, this is in the housing. Your only visibility is through that hole right there. So I think what I'm gonna do, after we drill this hole, I'm gonna pull this reluctor gear off my transmission shaft so at least I can get some level of visibility, you know, to kind of shine a light up in there and see if that speedometer gear, the driven gear and the drive gear are meshed up like I kind of want them to be. You know, if you get the jigs right, then you don't have to worry about that, but we kind of need to check it. All right, I'm gonna get this mounted on here and I'll show you one more jig I got put together. Hopefully can smooth this whole process as we smooth this whole process. Okay. Let me show you the next jig. So I got this plate, and the idea is that I got some dirt on there. There's some. There we go. So I made this plate. Got a piece of 1/2 inch welded to it, and I drilled a hole. And hopefully, when I bolt this on here, and I use you know, just a little punch, hopefully that'll put the center point, hopefully that will put the hole where I need to drill it. Let me get this bolted on. I don't think that hole had a bolt screwed all the way through it. As an aside, you know, this little punch set, you get it at Harbor Freight. And what they're meant for is they're called transfer punches. They're not really hardened steel. So if you use these as center punches, you're gonna mess them up. All they're meant to do is to be used to give you just a little dimple so that when you pull that off, you got a little witness mark. Then you find you a center punch, and then you punch it. Okay. Let's take it back off. I guess I could just drill that. I could drill that with a drill, couldn't I? Well, we have a hole in my nice casting. Let's take it apart. Well, I think I'm gonna set my square up again and just double check this. Well, according to that ruler, my line, or my hole, is right in the dead center of that line. According to my jig setup, you know, the way I've got it set up here, from this edge to the center line of that hole is 2.7 inches. Well, if the numbers are right, the hole is where the holes match my numbers. Well, we both know that there's a slight possibility that it still ain't right. But we're going to drill it anyway. So let me get this thing back to the drill press. Let me get my fang-dangled hole saw thingy out here, and let's drill a hole. Okay, you saw me filing a little bit. I think I'm about 55 thousandths off. So, looks like I'm gonna have to learn how to TIG. This housing's still workable, but I'd really like to get it right the first time. So, I'm gonna reset the jig. I'm gonna reset the jig on here, and I'm gonna shim that thing out 50 thousandths. And then we're gonna go drill it again. Let me rephrase that. I'm going to shim this out 50 thousandths, and I'm going to cut this housing that's busted. And if it looks like it drills in the right place, what did I do with it? And if it looks like it drills in the right place, we're going to try another good housing. R&D is always fun, right? So, let me find some metal that's somewhere, 50 to 60. Actually, I think we're going to see if we can find something that's about 60,000. I know we measured this. I've forgotten what it is. That says that's right. Actually, we know what that is, right? Didn't we? 18 gauge is like 47 thousandths. I think that's what we discovered. All right, I'm going to shut you off. And as usual, I'm going to go look for some metal. All right, I found some metal. I forgot to put the bracket on and transfer punch it. So I'm going to transfer punch it with the spacers on, and then we'll have to take the thing off, and I'll transfer it again. I just want to verify that I moved it as much as I thought I was going to move it. Somebody stripped out this top hole, so I had to sort of re-thread it, and I think it's still halfway cross-threaded. But it'll work for what we need it to do. I'll get the camera here. Let's see if you can see that. Okay, so there is the original jig, and there's the jig with the 60 thousandths on it. So I'll measure that, but that looks pretty close. All right. Well, let's try this again. I really believe it's going to work this time. You got to take all the numbers off. It kind of monkeys with the flatness. So let me hit this thing with a little, whatever this thing's called. Okay, I'm gonna go drill this thing. I'll get back to you. Well, folks, that makes me happy. I think that is gonna work. Let me let me get the camera down here and let me find a light, and then I'll stick a shaft in and we'll see what we got. All right, folks, that's what we got there. I'm thinking I can weld a nickel up underneath the bottom of this. Oh, there we go. I can weld a nickel up underneath the bottom of that as a stop. Actually, not weld, but just solder. And I think that'll work. Let me put the shaft in there, and it's going to be tight quarters. And then I'll put this housing on this other transmission I got over here, and we'll see if we can look in there. My little stop's getting in the way. I need to shim that up. There we go. Let me get this down here. Let's see if we can have a look at this. Get it off to the side here. There we go. Now let's have a look and see if that comes out. Let me spread this out. There we go. All right, so it wasn't in a bind. I think that's going to be nice. I definitely need to get the TIG out and learn how to TIG, because I think that's what needs to happen here. The interesting thing is, because I had to cut it so far back, let me get something to point with. Because I had to cut it so far back, let's see here. There we go. So because I had to cut it so far back, there's actually a fairly big flat surface right here that's a result of me cutting down really close to the belly here. So that thing actually has some support to keep from getting pushed down. So if I get it welded up here, I don't think I need to do anything else. We weld our nickel in the end of it. Weld the nickel in the end of it to keep that gear from coming out. All right. Let's see here. To keep that gear from coming out that way. And I think we got this whipped. Well, I'll be the first to admit, I sure thought I was gonna get this thing wrapped up, but I think I got the dimensions on the thing now. So what's left to do? Well, I need to get this welded in, and I need to make a drill jig. Let me get another one here. I need to get a drill jig, and I'll have to find a piece of pipe that slips over this so that I can drill a hole in the piece of pipe, and that way I can drill a hole in this shaft that will accept the little keeper, right? That little tang right there needs to go in a hole. There we go. Needs to go in a hole to hold this speedometer gear on. It doesn't have to be very deep, but I would be happier if I could just slip a piece of pipe on there that had a hole in the right place, and then I could just drill it in there. Let's see. You know, I think that's it, folks. So, the dimensions in this setup, this is 4 3/8 from this face to the center line of the hole, and it needs to be 2 1/4 plus 60 thousandths. Sorry, 1 1/4 and 60 thousandths. So that puts it at 1.31. Don't know what GM said it was going to be, but in my setup with my jig, that's what it needs to be. If you're going to play with this at home, I expect you're going to do it a couple of times based on how the jig sets up. But it's somewhere around 1 1/4, right? So I got 131, and I think that's going to work for me. I did my best to keep everything square and level. So, you know, everything being equal, it ought to be 131 for you too. But I don't know. I'm happy about this. This has been a whole lot more work than I thought it was going to be. But that's just sort of the nature of the beast, ain't it? Well, let me slip this on the transmission here. I pulled the reluctor gear off, and maybe we can see through the hole. I don't know, but we're gonna give it a shot. Boy, this is tough, folks. You can see the gear in there, and it looks like to me, I know you probably can't tell on the camera, but it looks like to me it's meshing up pretty good. Man, that looks like that's going to work. And I'm pretty happy about how snug that fits. Kind of happy about that. I know I keep saying that, but I'm pretty excited about this. This has been again, I'm repeating myself. I'll try to stop. But man, this was a lot of work. That said, we now have the ability to put a mechanical speedometer and hook into the computer with the VSS. That ought to solve a lot of problems. And realistically, I think this is going to be a good system. I looked and looked and looked to try to figure out what the center line distance between the two little gears were, and I couldn't see that posted. I think I'm going to hang my hat on 1.31. Okay, well, this hasn't been near as exciting as I thought it was going to be. I thought we'd get a whole lot further, but if you're still here, I appreciate you hanging with me. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. You know, make a comment and share it with your friends. Until next time, it's getting late Sunday afternoon and I need to start editing. All right.